I am starting the Grand Enchantment Trail here soon. It's about 770 miles or so from Phoenix to Albuquerque. It is a deep desert hike. I think it's going to be a very isolating experience, a very remote experience, and a very challenging, tough time. Anyway, I asked you guys on my YouTube channel in the little community tab to send in some questions for me to answer about anything you're wondering about hiking or my life or through hikes or whatever it may be. So we're going to go through those. How do I feel about the majority of backpacking content is primarily focused on gear? It is because that not everyone wants to watch a short documentary about a guy walking across Kentucky. You may have no interest in hiking across Kentucky yourself. You may have no interest of hiking across the desert of Arizona yourself. Whereas when it comes to gear, if you are a long distance through hiker, if you are a section hiker, an overnight backpacker, a day hiker, or even just a traveler, gear is going to apply to you. It applies to everyone. It's something that everyone can watch, everyone can kind of gain something from. Whereas, a specific trip, you may just have no interest in that area. A lot of other people kind of chimed in on that comment thread about more budget gear, that they would like to see more budget options, and that is absolutely a video that I want to do very soon, probably right after I finish the GET. It's something I think about a lot. I want these trips to be accessible to everyone, and if you're not already a thru hiker or already not a backpacker, it feels like a huge investment to get into these things. And I don't think it necessarily has to be, because there are so many budget options out there. But it's hard for the new backpacker to find that. So I'm going to do a big video about all of my favorite budget tricks and budget gear that I've used over the years. How does your body and mind deal with long uphill climbs? I definitely do kind of parse out my nutrition throughout the day, micronutrition, the hour to hour. Depending on what the terrain of the trail looks like. So before a big climb, I will eat just a little bit of sugar to kind of help me go up that climb a little bit easier, have a little bit extra energy, a boost there. Whereas going downhill or doing flats, I'll consume a lot more fats and stuff like that. But I think the big thing is, it doesn't have to be nutrition. I think that for me, and something I see a lot of other people where I think maybe they could benefit from a change, is just hiking slower. So by really slowing it down, taking lots of little tiny pitter-patter steps, going at a pace where you would be able to speak to someone else while you're hiking up that climb, I think that's, in my opinion, the best way to go about it. You're going to injure yourself less, you're going to be less sore, and it's just going to be easier. So walking slower. Uncle Andy wants to know, what is one thing I miss about not being a public figure? I guess kind of being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, in whatever way I want to do it. Whereas kind of now it's if I'm going to do something, I have, upwards of 70,000 or so people, potentially, who are either going to scrutinize how I do something, or they're going to take inspiration from how I do something. And I have to be fairly careful about, I don't want someone to take something from me and then to go hurt themselves or put themselves in a bad situation. So that's why on this channel I have talked a lot about, the importance of campsite selection and the importance of gathering experience near home, and not to rush into things and to really plan stuff out, because that's what I do. So in the end, I want everyone to be happy and of course safe. In a large way, that's why I'm trying out a bunch of different gear this year, because I want to have firsthand experience to recommend that, hey, I am using a tarp on this trip and I'm using a really flimsy sleeping pad, but here's two alternatives that would be easier to use, safer to use, and something that most people would probably find more comfortable. Jay Ben wants to know, perfect transition. Why the 360 on gear choices for 2023? Different outlook on ultralight? it's less for me and it's more for you guys. I would be ecstatic to continue hiking with the same exact gear that I've been using for the past 8 years. It's worked fantastically. Otherwise, I wouldn't have used it for as long as I have. But I recognize that a tarp and a very small sleeping pad and very minimal clothing and stuff like that is just not going to be happy for everyone. It's just not going to be safe for everyone without that same experience and without necessarily that same knowledge. So I want to use all this other new gear because I think it's going to be a happier time for most people. And ultimately, when I talk about the gear that I like, I want to be able to have first-hand knowledge and first-hand experience with the alternatives so that I can recommend those alternatives as well. Zach asks, pet peeves of fellow hikers. A great question. My pet peeve with hikers a lot of times is the ones that are just showing zero signs of respect. You know, no respect in trail towns, and they're maybe leaving like a bad reputation. No respect when it comes to like trail angels, and maybe they're trashing the place or just like kind of not being cool. Regardless of the trail you're doing, unless you made that trail, you are not the first person to ever do it, and you are not the last person to ever do it. You always got to remember to be an ambassador for everyone behind you, you know, to leave a good impression. So that is my pet peeve when I see hikers being very disrespectful out on the long trails. Do you think there would be a limit for your body or mind as far as how long you could spend on trail? For example, do you think you could hike for years or decades instead of weeks and months? Yeah, I think you could, but I don't think most people could. I think it would take a very, very special person. And there are a few people out there like that. There are a few people that are perpetual through hikers. I think, you know, when it comes to those like doing the calendar year Triple Crown, where you have to maintain a very high pace to achieve that and to meet those weather windows on the Triple Crown trails, you know, I don't think that would necessarily be sustainable to do 35 miles a day or 30 miles a day for years on end. But let's slow that down to about 20 miles a day. I think that would be very, very possible. It's just I think most people would get bored with it, and most people wouldn't want to do it. And, you know, most people would want those relationships and the family and the career, and they would get tired of it. Sam wants to know, can you share any info on psychological aspects of through hiking? How do you stay together? A lot of times you don't stay together, and that's the beauty of it. It's those times where you totally break down and lose it, but then you're able to build yourself back up and be stronger for that moment. And I think that's the beauty of the through hike. All right, Dave wants to know, how much longer do I plan on through hiking? Do I have plans on ever stopping, having a normal job, starting a family, etc.? I would like to continue through hiking for as long as possible. Through hiking or, you know, bike packing or trips along those lines. I know quite a few people that have done it for decades. There's people out there that have hiked the Triple Crown 3 times each. And I'm not saying like, oh, I want to be a triple crowner or anything. I'm just saying that I would like to continue doing this for a very long time. And I certainly have quite a list of trails that I'm very interested in. As for like a family or a normal career, someone else asked me this recently, and it's like, well, what if I want my career to be within the backpacking industry? You know, what if I would like to work for one of the major ultralight companies out there? Or what if I would like to start my own? You know, that's certainly a possibility and something I think about all the time. Do I do any training before my hikes? It seems like I have pretty good cardio and endurance. I don't think I have the greatest cardio and endurance. I think what it is that over the years of doing this, my body and my legs and my feet have just kind of developed some sort of a muscle memory for doing this. Now, do I train? Sometimes, yeah. Before the Pacific Crest Trail, I trained a lot. I went on a lot of like overnight hikes. I was running quite a bit. I was playing disc golf like all the frickin' time. And it's like, well, disc golf, who cares about that? Well, it's still getting out, going for a walk, being in the sun and the heat, carrying a backpack, so I definitely train for some hikes, and some much more than others. But I don't think you need to train for a thru hike. It's just if you don't, then you kind of got to curb your expectations and start out really slow and really, really listen to your body as you go along. But training is always going to make things a little bit easier. Though I will say that most people would benefit a lot more from just getting out on overnight trips often and getting used to their gear instead of training. So putting more time into overnights and just becoming familiar with backpacking instead of like getting out and training all the time, because there's also that other side of like you could injure yourself before you've even begun. And that would be pretty terrible. Flatlander wants to know, when did you get to the point where you were financially comfortable going on my first thru hike? Finances seem to be the major factor for me taking the time off. I mean, that's the biggest part for anyone. A thru hike is it's very difficult to, leave your home, leave your family, leave your friends, leave your job, and leave your income stream for however many months the thru hike is going to take. So, over the years I've gotten a little bit better at that and recognizing that thru hiking is the thing that I want to do most. So really prioritizing that in my life and putting all of my kind of like money into doing that. So when planning for your first thru hike, I would keep that in mind that, this is your priority right now and this is what we're saving money for right now. Now, they also asked about YouTube and if YouTube compensation is enough to do this full time. Making these videos is, at this point, my full-time job. But I will say that I would be making more money if I went today and got a job at McDonald's. So it's not like I'm getting rich here. All right, and that was all the questions. There were many, many more than that. I think over 100 questions were sent in. I'm very sorry if I did not get into yours, but I'm going to do these Q&As a little bit more frequently than I have in the past, just because I think it's fun to hear kind of what you're thinking and what's on your mind, and answering questions about topics that maybe I wouldn't make a full video about, but spending a couple minutes talking about it here and answering what you want to know, I think is very important. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I'm in the snow right now, but in like a couple days here, I'm going to be in the middle of the desert, and it's going to be interesting. So thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next one.